Glad to have you back. It's the Business Daily right here on Trust Television. Now we go into our discussion for today. Presidential Advisory Council indeed have advised President Bola Tinubu to sell some of the national assets in order to pay part of our debt. We're looking at that today, and I have right in the studio strategist and policy analyst, and of course CEO, Global Investment and Trade Company, Baba Yusuf. Glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Yusuf.
Yes, it's always a pleasure. Let's start from the dissolution of MDAs. That news came in very, very late yesterday. Were you expecting it?
Yes, it's expected, but the timing is what nobody knew. Of course, that is how it is. We have a new government in place. We expect government to take shape. The new leader of our country, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, will try to shape up the kind of government he wants to have. So dissolution of boards of MDAs is one of the steps that is taken by any government. The timing now is a function of the overall strategy of the new president. The president decides this is the time for him to do that. Don't forget that even in the twilight of the former administration, we saw this knee-jerk activity, rushing to constitute boards, you know, of organizations that ab initio should have had a board 7 years ago or 8 years ago. And then you wonder why 3 weeks or 2 months before the administration ends, they are setting up boards, which to my mind, if I was appointed, I would have politely declined, because there is no how you will add value. But it is what it is. The boards have been dissolved. We move.
Indeed. Will you think some have described our president as a Baba go fast, as against what we had before, Baba go slow?
I think I would rather paraphrase.
He has taken so much decision in the last couple of weeks.
Yes, I will call him Baba Action Man, Baba go well, because he's moving sure-footed. He's taking decisive actions. Absolutely. We are seeing, you know, intangible and tangible impacts. You know, if I say Baba go fast, maybe he may trip and topple. So his Baba is doing well. We like the move. The traction is good, and he's building critical momentum.
Absolutely interesting. And of course, the advisory council that he set up are beginning to advise him.
Absolutely.
They have told him to sell the national assets and pay part of our debt. What do you take? What's your take on that?
To be honest, Yusuf, this is a long time coming. We are seeing a government that is forward thinking. You know, the sale of some of these critical national assets, by the way, as recommended by the Advisory Council, very commendable recommendations under the various subheads. This particular one is under the fiscal policy. Fantastic move, and it's part of the action plan. We need this to be done. These assets have become liabilities. They are just there, you know, sucking up on our national our Commonwealth, and without results. So the recommendation is good, and by way of privatization, concession, or even, you know, scaling down our stake. And don't forget, there is a proviso given by the committee that there should be a proviso for buyback as well.
Yes.
You know, I'm very happy with that, because we've seen concessions before, we've seen privatizations before, but they've never yielded fruit. So I'm happy with this recommendation, particularly the sale of assets like the, you know, refineries.
They also advise the president to adopt a market-driven, a market-oriented idea in running the power sector. Absolutely.
That is the way to go. The same thing with the refineries, because I'm happy, you know, in my opinion, we have a president that is market thinking, a president that believes in free market, a president that believes in the business, removing the hands of government from the business of doing business, you know, to focus government to the business of enablement. That is how we should go. These government assets are now like pipelines to drain the economy. They are underperforming. They are no longer optimal. You know, the power sector cannot move at the pace we want it to move if we don't release it to the private sector. And that is the right thing to do. They've been with government for years. We see what happened. We saw what happened with the telcos when government decided to let go of the telecom industry. So it's way to go. And particularly about the refineries. I mean, over 4.15 trillion naira spent in 7 years to maintain refineries that are not producing anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And then this, if you look at the total production output,
that's still outside overhead.
Yes. So this is just for maintenance. And then you look at the total refining capacity of these refineries, all of them, Warri, Port Harcourt, and others.
450,000 barrels.
Less than 500,000 barrels per day. It's a joke. When you compare the kind of humongous amount of money that goes in there, absolutely, it's like a drain pipe. So this underperforming, or useless assets should be sold off. They are just there in our national balance sheet, producing no result. So we need to tidy up our national balance sheet. That is what the president is doing. And if we now decide to sell them, entities will come and buy. Of course, Nigeria will have some kind of stake and now turn around those refineries and make them productive. Because they will now become businesses for us. And that is the way we face our realities. After all, Mr. President has approved, entities that will be importing, refined product for us. And then we look at the next step. I'm sure Mr. President has a plan as to how we will have refineries that will be more productive. This is one of the steps.
Indeed, one of the steps. Let's look at it now. Do you think this decision that is coming at this time now is like an offshoot of the Dangote refinery that is set to commence refining of the petroleum product very soon?
I think the Dangote refinery is a different kettle of fish.
Are we trying to create more competition in the market?
Yes, of course, because it's a deregulated market already. But I think Dangote refinery, people need to understand Dangote refinery has a broader objective. Dangote refinery is actually a free trade zone. It's a special economic, it's set up in a special economic zone to be front-facing with regards to driving our economic export capacity, which is good for us because that will bring us foreign exchange. And then backward integration with regards to also selling back to Nigeria. Of course, it's not going to be subsidized, it's going to be competitive. But the more the merrier, as they say. So when you look at the internal side of the import side of Dangote refinery with regards to Nigeria, he has a competition with the new entity, the entities that have been approved to import. And when you look at it from a project management perspective as well, Dangote refinery needs to gain traction and build momentum with regards to production. It's a brand new refinery. Let's not kid ourselves. We are not going to expect to see that kind of production that will, provide for us enough, input to scale down prices in the short term. But in the mid to long term, yes. So that is Dangote. This also will provide competition, like you said, but also efficiencies. We expect this particular administration, like I said, with the way and manner Mr. President has taken up, to be also result-oriented. I'm very sure this new, kids on the block, if you like, will be able to deliver. And if they don't, I don't see them, staying over a period of time. They will be kicked out, and people that mean business will be allowed to do business.
So now, what will be the benefit of this competition that we are talking about on the larger economy? How would Nigerians benefit from the competition, especially in the petroleum market?
Well, the law of demand of supply, Yusuf. The more you have the supply, the impact on the pricing will be more balanced, if you like. And,
the more the merrier,
the more the merrier. Yes. So I think that is what will help the economy. There is no subsidy, but it doesn't mean it will be choked, to death because of pricing. So this will bring the dynamics of pricing competition into play to scale down without losing the fact that quality is also critical. So I think it's good. And also to say this, part of what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing is also to de-risk our economy. That is what he's doing. Selling this critical national asset that are, suboptimal or they are underperforming and trying to rein in, of course, generate quick liquidity, to sort out some of our issues in the short to mid-term and then build a stronger platform for long-term economic growth. These are ways to go. So it's also a de-risking strategy, if you ask me.
Interesting now. Before now, NNPC was the sole importer of petroleum products in Nigeria. Now, 6 more companies have been brought on board to, play in this market. To what extent do you think NNPC will be able to compete properly with some of these companies who perhaps are actually coming in from private sector?
Well, it's left to NNPC to play and continue to demonstrate their relevance to be in the game or not. We have a president that is performance-driven. So even if, at the end of the day, they are participating and they are not being optimal, something will be done about that. But I think the law of competition will play out. The moment these players come in and they are performing, it is natural that the NNPC will not like to sit up. Don't forget also within the recommendation, there are also conversations about what will happen to the NNPC Limited and all the other entities, you know, as well at the end of the day. So it's early days yet, it's games on.
Absolutely, it's really games on. There is also a part of the recommendation also is to list NNPCL on the board, I mean on the NGS, Nigeria Stock Exchange Group, as well as the case may be, so that Nigerians can actually participate in the ownership of NNPCL. What is your take on that?
Where to go, Yusuf? We have the likes of Aramco in Saudi Arabia, a company, you know, that is state-owned, but look at how it is churning out numbers. Look at how it is churning out profit. You know, that is the only way you can clean up that entity and make it more productive, more result-oriented, more profitable for the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So it's a way to go. And when you put it on the stock exchange also, the government will reduce its investment there with regards to stake. And of course, the moment a company is in the stock exchange, there are corporate governance frameworks that are there that guide the activity of that entity. It is also open to Nigerians to invest and to have more voice with regards to how that entity is run, with regards to its performance across the vertical and horizontal variables of performance. And that is the way to go to push the entity to be more performance-oriented.
Yeah, no, interesting. Now, let's look at privatization now as a whole. It's not as if it's new to Nigeria.
Yes.
We have done this before.
Yes.
But the results, to some extent, have not really been favorable. Do you think this one is going to be different?
You know, I don't want to, well, I can be blamed for sounding like a broken record. Antecedents for me remain a key consideration when I'm trying to hazard a guess or project the future. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu ran Lagos State for 8 years.
Absolutely.
For many years, over 4 years, without federal government subvention. If you look at projects like the Lekki Free Trade Zone, or the Lagos Free Trade Zone, and projects like that where he brought in this constructive, disruptive concept and strategy, you know, to drive the economy of Lagos, which is trying to scale up now. With regards to privatization under his watch, I don't have, you know, fear, because we've seen him done something like that and we have gotten results. Political will, transparency in government are very critical, especially with regards to privatization. Accountability, right? Execution quotient, and what type of governance frameworks and operation model are you going to adopt with regards to the privatization? Already you see a committee, brilliant committee, coming out with the recommendation saying we can privatize or concession or scale down our stake
within a very short time,
with a buyback option. So there is going to be levers of control to ensure that the privatization, you know, detractors or other people will say, oh, they are selling up our national assets, they are selling it off, and we are going to end up with nothing. I totally disagree, because he has been there, he has done that as a governor, and we have seen the reforms that took place with regards to privatization from 1999 to 2007 under President Olusegun Obasanjo. We've seen what happened with Telco, for example, and others, and we've seen other privatizations and concessions of smaller entities that have become success stories. Of course, let me say this with a caveat. Ab initio, if you rate it in terms of performance of privatization and concessions and PPPs, it's actually very, very poor. Yeah. We have done studies on that. But with regards to expectations, the man in the driver's seat, you know, is a leader that is quintessential. So we believe that the antecedents will be replicated and upscaled moving forward.
But Lagos is a small state. We're talking about the larger
I tell you what, Yusuf, many people talk about this, and, you know, I smile. Within the size of Lagos, the microcosm of Lagos, when you look at the numbers in terms of population, this is a state that is bigger than some federal republics, with due respect, in terms of population. This is a state that is highly cosmopolitan. Almost every tribe or ethnicity or religion, you have them in Lagos. This is what, fourth or fifth largest economy in Africa? Hello, how many countries do you have in Africa? So if you look at it from that perspective, a governor that drives that state and, you know, is able to deliver what was delivered, I believe you can use that as a yardstick like I said, somebody ran a state without subvention and was able to create IGR to drive the economy of the state and all that. So to my mind, when you are doing comparative analysis, you need to look at this kind of things to be able to say, yes, we are doing comparisons that make sense.
Indeed, talking about doing comparison that makes sense now. I want to take your mind back again to the privatization that we have done before, especially in the power sector and other areas. But to some extent, do you think that has worked? That is actually my fear, and the fear of so many Nigerians have also expressed that they hope that this will also be handed over to friends and cronies.
Like I said, it's all about the leader at the front, and then those that are within what I call the leadership value chain. But the focal point leader will now drive the leadership value chain to get results. The current president has come on board. He has antecedents we have seen. Of course, one would say that was at a subnational level. The national level is a different kettle of fish with different interests and all that.
Absolutely.
But the decision he has taken so far has shown us the kind of days we should be expecting. So what I will expect is for Mr. President to be more firm, and more frugal moving forward with regards to that. And I think he will be very interested in seeing to the success of this privatization, especially the power sector. It's a critical driver of one of the, promise he made in the new renewed hope agenda with regards to driving the fourth industrial revolution, with regards to the creation of jobs and all that. Without power, where are we going to be?
And the first thing he did was to also sign the Electricity Act 2023.
Yes, which was in the, the legislation has taken place during the time of President Buhari.
Absolutely.
Now what he did was to prioritize. As soon as he came in, he saw a critical success factor. He ticked it up and signed it, which also gives powers to state and private entities to generate power. Absolutely. Now, what remains to be seen is how those leaders, the governors at subnationals, will be creative and strategic to rein in on this and also support the center. Because, I should say this, the development of Nigeria is not only dependent on the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We have critical stakeholders, the governors, that also have critical roles to play. This particular law that has been signed is going to support that, and we'll see how they are going to also support. I believe most of them will also key into that.
That is the question many people have been asking, whether some governors will key into that, because you need to actually, introduce a legislature in your own state for you to be able to have control over your own power, or else you'll be at the beck and call of NERC, as the case may be. But now, looking at the states that we have now, do you think many of them they are not equal when it comes to revenue, in terms of revenue? So don't you think that is going to come to play?
Creativity, Yusuf. When you promise...
How many of our governors are creative?
Excuse me, people thought, aspired, campaigned, and won election, and took a mandate to deliver dividends of democracy to their people, made a lot of noise, fought through thick and thin, and said they have the capacity, the capability, and the competence to deliver. What excuse do they have to make? They need to be creative. I keep on going back to Lagos. Lagos is not an oil-producing state. You had oil-producing state governors during the time of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu when he was in Lagos governor, without subvention, without oil. And you're able to deliver. So it's a function of, first of all, the vision of that governor, the capacity inherent of that governor, and what he really has his intention with regards to governing the state. Is he governing the state from a transactional point of view, or does he really want to change and turn around the lives of people with or without oil, with or without the handout from the federal government? Each and every state in Nigeria is blessed with some kind of resources that will drive the economy of a nation, not even of a state. Nigeria is very blessed. Let's see the kind of capacity these governors had in the next 4 years. Nigerians are very conscious now, and we'll wait to see how they play out.
Interesting there. We look forward to see how creative our governors are going to be in the next 4 years. Baba Yusuf, strategist and policy analyst, and of course CEO Global Investment and Trading Company. I must thank you for your time on Business Daily.
Appreciate you, Yusuf. Thank you so for having me.
Always answer us when we call.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, that is a wrap on Business Daily today. Tomorrow is another day. Join us here. We'll be here. I am Yusuf Akogo.